Welcome to 1960s Britain, because today we're heading straight back to the car pass. Because today we're taking a look at this, the Jaguar XJ13 from 1966. This thing's got a whopping 502 brake horsepower, 378 foot-pounds of torque, and weighs just a shade under 2,560 pounds. Oh, and did I mention it's also worth 18 million? You know, not too much, right? Although I've got to say, this thing does look very interesting, and I've got to say I think maybe the closest relative to this car design from Jaguar would have been the D-Type. But I've got to say, just look at the back of that, look at the engine, it looks so cool. Going to the inside, we have got ourselves a lot of dials, buttons and gauges, and in the centre we've also got what looks to be a little bit of a badge as well. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this thing and see what it sounds like. Or rather, hear what it sounds like. You know what I'm on about. Let's go! So here we are now in the upgrade shop. The first thing we're doing is jumping straight over to conversion, over to engine swaps and seeing what's available. It's just one, which is the Racing V12, capable of at least 750 brake horsepower just on that engine alone without any upgrades. Of which in something like this is essentially just asking for trouble. You can also go ahead and make this thing all-wheel drive, and with the plans that I have for it, we're definitely doing that later. You can also go ahead and turbocharge the stock engine as well. As for aero and appearance, going to the front, we've got ourselves just a tiny little splitter there, and then going to the back, we of course have got ourselves a tiny little ducktail on the back there as well. However, in the meantime, our wonderful mechanic Mac is back once again with a brand new tune called Drive Me If You Dare. So let's go ahead and bring up the share code of that real quickly. There it is, feel free to grab that for yourself. We're going to go ahead, download and install and see what it can do. So with those upgrades, we're now at 2,400 pounds in weight, a lot lighter than before, with a whopping 920 brake horsepower all the way up at the top of S1. Oh, and it's also rear wheel drive, I probably should have mentioned that. So with those upgrades applied, now we're in the paint shop. We've got nothing in advanced, and we've got ourselves a whopping 1 paint for this thing, which is honestly a pretty cool one though. It is a British Racing Green. Although now we've got to go and race this thing, so this should be fun. So now we're going to go ahead and try and race this thing, and it's going to be very, very interesting because, like I said, this thing is just shy of 1,000 brake horsepower on just, I think, slick tyres, rear-wheel drive, and thankfully we've got aero, otherwise I think this thing would be just absolutely all over the place, especially because it's so light as well. Let's go ahead, put it to the test and see how it does. And away we go. Now, I was told to be very careful with this thing on the throttle because it is meant to be as stupidly fast. So let's go ahead and see just how we do. Of course, do have turn number 1 up here, which is going to pretty much give us exactly all the things that we need to know on how this thing is going to handle, which, to be honest, is actually pretty good. I'm very surprised. This thing's actually pretty grippy. For something with nearly 1,000 brake horsepower, I was expecting it to be all over the place. However, if you wanted one of these for yourself, and they are an honestly just absolute complete museum piece, I've got to say, a good luck trying to get a hold of one. And that's because there was only one ever made, and that one now has a dent in it. Oh well. But it's true, there was only one ever made. As to where it is, I have no idea. I really genuinely don't know. But I've got to say, it is quite the car indeed, and it's also extremely, extremely pricey. But the original XJ13 has been valued at an estimated $7 million US, which is honestly insane. And also roughly this in pound sterling. Like I say, this thing's relatively grippy. It got a little unhappy with me there, but let's try and see if we can at least try and hold this back onto being a decent car and try and make it across the line. There's a car right behind me, but it's not quite gonna be enough for the little Ferrari because we crossed the line in first place with a 1:57. So overall, it was a very chaotic finish to that race, but now let's go ahead and take a look at the backstage vote, because this week we've got ourselves the Sierra Cars 700R and the Liberty F250 versus the Polaris RZR Pro and the Honda Trophy 15. Now, I think Forza have messed up slightly here, because a lot of these, at least 3 out of 4 of these vehicles, we're getting throughout this series anyway, so I think this week I might just have to leave the vote be. But do go ahead and let me know what you pick in the comments. In the meantime, we're jumping back over to the tunes and back to our wonderful tuner Mac because we've got the Wheelie Fun drag build. Let's go ahead and bring up the share code of that real quick. There it is. Again, feel free to grab that for yourself. We're going to go ahead, download and install and see what we can do with this thing. So those upgrades now, we're a little heavier than before at 2,425 pounds in weight with a whopping 1,191 brake horsepower, pretty much 1,200, which in this thing is going to be insane. Right, here we are now over at the back of the festival. Let's go ahead and get a wheelie check out of this thing. Does it live up to the name? And it sure does. That was actually really impressive. Or wheelie impressive. Speed cameras, yep, that's what we're aiming for. So let's go ahead, get this thing on launch control, and away we go. A wheelie off of the start with this thing. Like I say, 1,191, nearly 1,200 brake horsepower out of this thing, which is honestly nuts. It's very, very light. We've got ourselves 203 through the camera and going off the end of the runway at a whopping 230 and absolutely zero brakes. To be fair, it's a car from the 60s. I don't know what I was thinking. Right, here we are now back over in the upgrade shop, and it's time for us to take this thing into our hands to see what we can do. We're going to chuck in the engine. We're also going to go ahead and chuck in the, as promised, all-wheel drive. And while we're at it, we're going to go ahead and throw back in the twin turbos, because we're going to try and make this thing a top speed build. Now, I know what you're thinking. Tech, you must be crazy. And the answer to that is, you are completely right. Hold on a second. By the way, I can also go ahead and do the front track width, but I can't do any track width at the back. Okay, right, that makes sense. Roll cage, nah, we don't need that. Yeah, that looks about right. And now let's go ahead and tune this entire thing, and hopefully we can get a good top speed. You know what, I think I might aim for about 270. Or I would have been had I not forgotten to put suspension in. In the meantime, let's go ahead and take a look at this week's Forzathon shop, where we've got ourselves the number 185 Porsche 959 Rally Raid. We've got ourselves a backstage pass. We have some interesting crew socks, really a long name for the R.J. Anderson trophy truck, the beautiful morning car horn, which sounds a bit like this. Oh, how nice. We also have ourselves the Horizon Super Wheel Spin, as well as the Horizon Regular Wheel Spin as well. And now, out to the motorway. Right, let's see. Have we gotten ourselves close to the great today? In fact, we've, no, we've not. We've passed it. How have we passed it? Okay, that's a new one. Okay, here we are now over at the edge of the motorway. Let's go ahead and get ourselves onto some launch control, and away we go with the Jaguar XJ13. Like I said earlier, a stupid amount of power, insanely light. Let's go ahead and see if we can get a good top speed. If we don't, I'm honestly going to be a bit sad. Right, come on, the edge of the speed zone's up here somewhere. There it is, 261.63, and we've still got the downhill and speed cameras to go, and we're getting ever closer to that elusive 270. And speaking of the speed camera, there it is, 268.92, going downhill. There is the 270 I was hoping for. In fact, we've gotten a little quicker, 271 out of this thing, which is really mad considering this is a car from the 60s. However, now it's time to go ahead and make this thing do something it was definitely not designed to do. Why do I get a feeling I've already said that with the truck last week? Anyway, we're going to go ahead and take an absolutely priceless classic drifting. Let's go ahead and see what we can do with this thing. As always, 30,000 points is our little standard for, seeing how good cars are. And we've got 38,080 on the first run, which out of this thing is just nothing shy of a miracle. However, can we do it again? Can we pull off a miracle? Let's go ahead, throw this thing in for round number 2 at 38,080 is to beat. Can we do it? Actually, yeah, 38,187. We're just going to ignore that slight moment with the tyres, because if the Horizon insurance team ever found out about that, I think they'd be going broke. In the meantime, that is this video on the Jaguar XJ13, and I've got to say, what a car. This thing is honestly a lot of fun to drive. It is stupidly quick, and honestly kind of a little bit underrated if you ask me. Mostly because everyone goes on about the E-Type, the D-Type, the XJ, the XJS, and other various assorted Jaguars, but they've never really touched on this one. I know it's a one of one, and I think that's what also makes it a little bit special too. If you want to pick up one of these for yourself, you can grab it via the car pass, like I said at the start of this video. It is a little extra on top of what you probably already paid for the game, unless you have the top version of Horizon 5, then you can get the car pass included, but it's definitely worth getting. In the meantime though, thank you very much for watching. Feel free to go ahead and like, comment, share and subscribe, all that cool stuff, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Tech out. See ya! Drifting a priceless classic. Never thought I'd be doing that today.